How close to being abandoned is the massive pipeline building project that will take gas from Russia into the heart of Europe? Well, America is upping the pressure and some firms have quit Nord Stream 2 because of that. Will it ever make it to shore? This is Roundtable. Hello from me, David Foster. Germany insists it is fine with the project. It needs the gas. But others in Europe, well, they agree with the United States. This gives Moscow too much power. Nord Stream 2 is the second pipeline that will transport gas from Russia to Germany via the Baltic Sea. The $11 billion pipeline will run alongside the already built Nord Stream 1, and will double the amount of gas being funneled through the Baltic to 110 billion cubic meters per year. With less than 150 kilometers yet to be built, the United States is threatening to impose sanctions on companies involved in the construction. 16 have recently pulled out of the project, according to documents submitted to the US Congress. America's opposition stems from worry that the pipeline will expand the Kremlin's influence in Europe. Eastern European countries, as well as France, have growing concerns over dependence on Russian energy and an increased threat to Ukraine, which could lose out on vital income. The Trump administration had a clear stance on the issue, but President Biden is keen to build new alliances, even as his office opposes the project. What now then? Can the United States and Germany reach a deal? And if so, what might that look like? And you can see now on your screens the three guests we have with us for Roundtable today, starting in Moscow, where we say hello to Stanislav Zhizin, Professor at Ghent University and President of the Center for Energy Diplomacy and Geopolitics. We go to Brussels next. And there we see Moniek de Jong, doctoral researcher at the Department of Political Science, Ghent University, and then Berlin. Janis Kluge is there. He's at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. I'm going to start in Moscow, Stanislav, with you. And this has puzzled me a little bit. Does Moscow need the money from this or just the prestige? In other words, how would cancellation hurt Russia?
It's a commercial project, and no doubt about this, and it started. As for influence, I think it's mutual influence. It's the influence of Russia on European Union and also European Union Russia, because you see we have mutual interest, mutual dependence. I would dare say this, and that's also geopolitics. Unfortunately, now geopolitics dominates the world energy and European energy.
Okay, Moniek, let me bring you in on this. We had a number of small firms leave the project because of suggestions that they might be penalized. That really hasn't affected things too much. Others have come in and replaced them. But the big players are now feeling some of the heat. Players like Shell. What is the likelihood that the US could come down on them and endanger the project now?
Well, there's always a chance, of course, that they will come after these. The US will go after these companies. However, that's unlikely because these companies also are involved in US energy business. But it is interesting, for example, that a German company, Wintershall, has, for example, said that they have finished financing the Nord Stream 2, while they have not financed the full 950 million euros for the project. So that does indicate that there is some concern amongst these companies, the 5 big investors in the project, that they will get targeted, and they are making it seem publicly, or at least Wintershall has, that they are winding down their operations on Nord Stream 2 as well. So I wouldn't say there is that much concern that they'll be targeted directly, especially because the money has already been spent. So there's no way they can actually remove their money, their investment from the project.
Any idea how long it would take to finish this off if everything went according to plan? In other words, how soon will any type of cancellation just be missing the point because the pipeline will already have got there?
Well, you can already suggest that they are getting very close now to completion. Every day they are building hundreds and hundreds of meters of the pipeline project. So it's become very much an urgent issue. If the US wants to stop the project using sanctions, that they would have to act quickly because their window of opportunity is closing. So I don't think the project will be finished before the mid-2021. It'll take some time, especially because they'll also need to do the certification of the pipeline. The project could be completed, the construction part could be completed maybe before May. Sorry, not before May, before June. But I consider that very small chance that it will actually be completed before then.
Okay, so if it's not completed, then the sanctions come in. There is a question mark over the whole thing. Let us hear from the White House now. This is Jen Psaki, press secretary. They're talking about Nord Stream 2.
Well, our position on Nord Stream 2 has been very clear, and it remains unchanged. President Biden has made clear that Nord Stream 2 is a bad deal. It's a bad deal because it divides Europe. It exposes Ukraine and Central Europe to Russia and Russian manipulation, and because it goes against Europe's own stated energy and security goals. We're continuing to monitor activity to complete or to certify the pipeline, and if such activity takes place, we'll make a determination of the applicability of sanctions. Importantly, sanctions are only one of among many important tools to ensure energy security, and we, of course, will do this all in partnership with our allies and partners, but our position has not changed on the deal.
So she talks about countries in danger because of it. She talks about how bad it is. I want to know, Janis, if I can ask you this, whether the US is against it because of what's happened to Navalny in Russia, because of what's happened in Ukraine, or because it wants to sell much more of its own gas to Europe, and if this pipeline is there, that's unlikely to happen. Which of the three reasons, or are there others?
I think that actually the security argument, the argument about Ukraine that you made, is the key argument. If we speak about US LNG, I think the key is to consider that this pipeline will not bring additional gas to Europe. It will just reroute the existing supplies from Ukraine to a different pipeline. So this means that actually the European gas demand for LNG will not be affected by the pipeline, or maybe only be marginally affected. So the worries about the US pushing its LNG into Europe using sanctions as an instrument, I think are exaggerated. And I think, especially from the pressure coming out of the US Congress, that this pressure is related to security arguments and security considerations.
Okay, so the Navalny case doesn't come into it at all?
Whenever there was some sort of crisis in the Russia-Western or Russia-European relations in the past years, it has always come back to Nord Stream 2. So this pipeline now has become sort of a litmus test for Germany's Russia policy. And we saw this already during the Kerch incident in 2018 in Crimea. We saw this during the Skripal poisoning. Whenever there's such an incident, a transgression by security services from Russia, for example, it always comes back to Nord Stream 2 as the measure that has to be taken to sort of show restraint to Vladimir Putin and Russia's foreign policy.
Stanislav, let me ask you about the relationship between Germany and Russia here. Why is Germany so keen to have this pipeline come into its territory and thence on to other countries as well, when other Europeans and the United States say it is a bad thing?
I think that Germans also, German business particularly, they calculate much more professional way than American politicians. So they will understand the importance of Russian gas for the future of energy of Germany and some East European countries. So there is the prognosis that there will be the growth of demand for gas in Europe, and in spite of this green package, Green Deal 2050, we can see that still there is some place for the the gas and the situation in Texas showed that as well these wind stations, they could not work under those extreme situation. So Germans do understand, I mean, German business, that they need the gas.
And is it true that the Nord Stream 2 pipeline could never operate at full capacity into Europe because of EU rules against that?
No, I think it will be full capacity, and it's just not only just natural gas, but also hydrogen. And we see just this hydrogen energy is developing in Europe, in particular in Germany. And so there are different ways how to transport hydrogen from Russia.
Okay. And they need this because the one through the Ukraine needs modernizing, and Ukraine doesn't have enough money to do that for whatever reason.
As for Ukraine, it's a different story. It's a problem with the situation, technological situation of gas pipeline in Ukraine. No money to invest to modernize it, and it's a serious problem for Ukrainian gas pipeline system.
Okay. But Germany's losing a bit of goodwill over this, isn't it, within Europe and in the United States? Does it care at all?
I'm sure it cares, but I first want to come back to what Stanislav said. Nord Stream 2 will be need to adhere to EU regulations regarding the third energy package, which means it cannot operate at full capacity as long as Gazprom is the owner of the project. This will mean that it will either be used at half capacity or maybe some other deal with the EU can be reached. And the hydrogen story will be very doubtful if that will ever happen, because that will require massive investments into the Nord Stream 2 project before that it can be retrofitted to actually transport hydrogen to Europe.
Okay, thank you for that. But what about Germany and where it positions itself? It says it needs the gas. A lot of European countries say, hang on, this is a bad idea. So does the United States. Does Germany not care at all?
Germany does care, of course, what the other countries think. Germany does not need this gas. This gas will transit through Germany to the Czech Republic and other countries in Eastern Europe. I guess they do care, but I guess there are other aspects that are involved in the German decision to support Nord Stream 2, for example, the relationship with Russia, which it considers very important. And I guess Germany has been acting a bit like a hegemon in the EU, and I guess it really has lost a lot of goodwill with Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Poland, the Baltic States. So there's definitely a price that Germany is willing to pay to have this project finished.
Interesting. Let's hear now from Angela Merkel, who is at the moment still Chancellor of Germany, but won't be for very much longer. This will be a problem perhaps for her successor.
In connection with the events in Russia, we have already said that we reserve the right to continue sanctions, especially against individuals. The position on Nord Stream 2 is not affected by this for the time being. We obviously share the view that we must not become too dependent on Russia. We always stood up for Ukraine receiving gas from Russia as a transit country, and we will continue to do so.
See, I'm wondering whether standing up to the United States goes down quite well in Germany.
I think actually that the country is sort of divided on this. There is still a big part of the population that actually, has some trust in Russia, wants to keep these links alive to Russia, and is actually distrustful of the motives of Washington, also with regards to these sanctions. So in Germany, if you look at the discourse, you can see that this argument that Russia wants to just sell its LNG and uses sanctions as a means to achieve commercial goals, this is very popular and very strong. I think it's actually some kind of misunderstanding, which you could see when Olaf Scholz, actually the German finance minister, offered to import LNG as a concession with regards to Nord Stream 2, which didn't work out because, as I said before, Nord Stream 2 from the eyes of the Americans is mainly a security issue And even though Trump liked the argument about LNG, it has never been really that much a commercial issue for the United States.
So what is Germany's argument in this when it comes to security? Because a lot of countries suggesting that Europe might become too dependent upon Russian gas, that Russia could at any time turn it off if it felt it wanted to. What does Germany say about those arguments?
I think it's important to see that Germany's position, it really evolved. I mean, you cannot say that there was a strategy that worked out from the beginning, but it was more like Germany was sleepwalking into this dilemma, which it is today. And now it's just about mitigating the biggest risk and the biggest fallout for in economic terms and in political terms. So at the moment, it's just about salvaging the situation somehow, and it was not planned to be like this. Now, there are several arguments which are used to speak out in favor of Nord Stream 2. And Monique has already told us some of them. One is that we need to keep these links to Russia. Another one is that we need the natural gas for our energy transition. But if you look closely, actually, this is more of an attempt, as I said, to find arguments in favor of Nord Stream 2, a project which I would say right now, if we could travel back in time, we would not start again.
Stanislav, your thoughts on that? It didn't work out in the long term, and yet you think perhaps we'll be talking in the years to come about Nord Stream 3 and Nord Stream 4.
Well, it depends on the market, first of all. If there will be the gas market will be growing, maybe there will be a need for Nord Stream 3 and 4. But I would like to make some comments from another side. Now we see the growing military confrontation potential in Baltic region, particularly in Baltic Sea, and between NATO and Russian Federation is dangerous. And if we have more infrastructure like Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2, and maybe other, then there will be less conflict potential, military conflict potential, because there will be mutual dependence of European Union countries and Russia. That's at least it's my understanding.
So you think it will actually lessen tensions rather than perhaps heighten them?
Yes, I think we have more infrastructure. That will be mutual dependency of European Union countries, Germany and Austria and so on and so on, Russia, just in Baltic region. I'll speak only just about Baltic region.
Okay, let's go to Monique, if I may, on that one, because I want to hear which countries within Europe would counter that argument and why they would say they are so against it. Which are the ones that are most steadfast in their opposition and don't believe it would lessen any tensions?
Well, the Baltic States are the top three, together with Poland. They actually feared the projects would increase military presence of Russia near their waters. So they definitely don't consider Nord Stream 2 or any potential expansion of Nord Stream 2 to be in their favor. So, and also Sweden has in the past indicated that they are not content with German vessels near their waters or in their EEZs. So I guess there are very few Baltic states, countries on the Baltic Sea, that would actually prefer to see more Russian presence and think any mutual dependence would occur from Nord Stream 2.
Stanislav, is this about Europe and Russia on one side, or about Russia and the United States?
Well, as for the United States, it's a little bit different story. The United States have their own interest, mainly geopolitical interest in Russia, just in Europe, and I don't like to go to intricacies of Russian-American relations. It's another story, though I do understand some of them. Just the US, they want just at least to diminish the supply of Russian energy resources to Europe, and they call it in the bill just the energy security of Europe. So Russia,
Janis, your thoughts on that?
Russia can still export lots of natural gas to Europe. There's plenty of free capacity currently in the Ukrainian transit corridor. Russia doesn't want to use this corridor anymore for obvious reasons, because of the conflict and because it doesn't want to depend on Ukraine with this. But there is lots of capacity, actually more free capacity at the moment than the whole capacity of Nord Stream 2 is going to be. So this pipeline is not aimed at reducing, at increasing gas supply to Germany or to Europe. It is aimed at rerouting it just to a different part of Europe, just to make it go around Ukraine. And so the supply of gas from Russia to Europe will not be diminished if Nord Stream 2 was stopped or was only operated to allowed to operate.
But your argument at the beginning of this program was that the United States pressure is because of what is happening in Ukraine. Is your suggestion that this is simply to bypass Ukraine part of that same argument?
Of course. You could actually, I mean, there was a statement by Alexei Miller already in 2014, late 2014, when he said that the goal of Nord Stream 2 is actually to bring the Ukrainian transit to zero. So this goal to really end transit through Ukraine is an explicit goal of Gazprom, the Russian gas supplier.
So will it be cancelled? This is the point we started the program with. Stanislav, I will come back to you in a second. And Monique, I'm not leaving you out, but will it be cancelled?
So I think that the most likely scenario is not that it's going to be cancelled, but that it will be completed and it will be allowed to operate under certain rules. Because this would be an option for the Biden administration to solve its own dilemma. It wants to fix transatlantic relations, and Berlin's dilemma, because of course it doesn't want these costs that these firms incurred that to be sunk costs. So this would be a solution which both sides could agree on. I think that something similar is going to happen, and there will be some sort of shut-off mechanism in case that Russia really turns off the Ukrainian transit, or in case that there's some sort of escalation in Ukraine happening.
Thank you very much indeed. Stanislav, quickly from you, if that's at all possible.
Yes, very quickly. You know, I think just the United States would impose sanctions against Russia and European Union companies without Ukraine. There would be no Ukrainian crisis anyway. They would invent something. I know they're creative people. I leave the United States. I don't understand the psychology. I would like to remind you, late 60s.
Oh, no, I'm terribly sorry. We don't have time for the history lesson. I'm not being rude. We have only about a minute and a half to go, and I want to get to Monique, so please, quickly.
It was the deal, pipes for gas, the gas for Federal Republic of Germany. And the United States wanted to cancel it and impose the sanctions against Russia, Soviet Union, and against some companies from common market countries.
How did that end? Very quickly.
And they felt no Ukrainian.
Okay, Monique, how is this going to end? And I'm not talking about this program and whether we can get Stanislav to let you have a chance to speak. But Stanislav, we're going to have to pull your microphone down. Monique, how is all this going to end?
I think Nord Stream 2 will get completed. I think that indeed, like Janis said, there will be some sort of mechanism in place to ensure that a gas transit through Ukraine will continue. I do think that the process of getting that kind of mechanism or that agreement between the US, Germany, will take a long time. And I'm not sure if they will actually get it done before the pipeline is completed. So there's a little bit of a balance between what the US thinks is more important and Germany, and whether they can agree on this on time before the pipeline is completed, so that the US still has leverage on the project.
And that will be some kind of compromise that perhaps pleases all sides, that there are such strict rules on it that Europe would never feel like it could be held hostage by Russia. The United States would be okay with that because it doesn't mean Russia's got dominance, and Germany and the other countries still get their gas, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, listen, thank you very, very much indeed. From Moscow, from Brussels, from Berlin, we've been talking about Nord Stream 2 and also possibly Nord Stream 3 and 4. I thank you very much for your time, for being on this edition of Roundtable. And to you, wherever you happen to be watching this program, our thanks also. From me, David Foster, from the team that put this together. Until next time, goodbye.